All right, welcome to Ivory GC. In this episode, we're joined by Bita Goldman, Global General Counsel at UNiDAYS, a student platform reaching over 22 million verified users across more than 100 countries. Bita brings a unique mix of legal expertise, operational leadership, and business strategy to the table, having guided digital companies through international expansion, M&A, compliance programs, and platform innovation. We'll talk about how Bita's shaped legal at a high-growth brand, the evolving role of in-house counsel in global tech companies, and what it means to lead with adaptability, empathy, and precision. Bita, welcome to Ivory GC.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So let's start with your story. What originally drew you to law, and what path led you to become global general counsel at UNiDAYS?
Yeah, so I was not born in America, and from a young age, I had to advocate for people in my family who didn't understand English, go with them to doctor's appointments, navigate complex challenges. I think a lot of immigrant kids can, that resonates with them. So I went to law school really to be that voice, and I started out as representing victims of domestic violence. And slowly I saw that I had a real entrepreneurial itch that needed to marry up with the legal work. It wasn't just, motion practice, but needed some more excitement to it. So over time, I gravitated towards roles that had that legal experience, but also the operational background of what we were doing. And so I went in-house for a startup. I was the GC and VP of operations there. And essentially the backbone of a startup is, the hiring, the warehouse management, the marketing capabilities, the commercial contract templates, like really everything that got the startup to grow. And then from there, the business got acquired. I transitioned into business at UNiDAYS, which was really exciting and very new because it's a UK-based business and I was based in the US, so it was a lot of a learning curve. And then that really started out the love for like entrepreneurial, legal, operational mindset in everything that I do.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. Was the startup that you worked at, was it the first in-house position that you had?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that company, what industry they were in, what your role was there, and how that evolved?
Yeah. So the business was at the time a new concept. Right now it's very basic. It's very common. It was an e-tailer. So basically you sold things online. They were one of Amazon's lead sellers, and it's so common now, right? You want to buy something, the first place you'll go to is Amazon. But at the time, that was very, very new. So we helped bring these products and brands to market, give them that like worldwide visibility, and grow their presence on a marketplace that would deliver the next day.
And so how would you say your skill set adapted in that role? What skills were you learning? What areas of law were you practicing in that maybe you hadn't previously?
Yeah. So in some ways it was very similar to what I was doing with domestic violence work, family law, criminal work that I was doing. It was managing expectations, difficult clients, difficult relationships, making sure I was transparent with the way that I was communicating with people. But in so many ways, it was brand new. Hiring, termination of employees. Your warehouse employees don't show up. What are you going to do? You have a supply chain issue. Someone in China copies what you're doing. How are you going to manage that? So there was a lot of new areas that I had to learn on the job. I was the first legal hire, the only legal hire. So, and with a very limited budget. I mean, this wasn't like a established business that had, hundreds of thousands in legal budgeting. So it was a lot of learning on the job, leaning on networks of people that I knew who were happy to lend a hand, a lot of research, a lot of curiosity.
Yeah. And so what led to your transition to UNiDAYS? And can you tell us a little bit about that company?
Yeah. So the business that I was in was the Inc. 500 fastest growing business in the US 3 years in a row. So it really catapulted. It was just the perfect business for the perfect time that we were in. It got acquired, which is really the dream for any small business like that. And then I went in-house at UNiDAYS. Really, I remember my first interview saying to the then GC, I just want to be a corporate counsel. I want to come in and review contracts and I want to go home. I don't want the stress of like late night calls. I don't want the, what are we going to do if and then. She was like, yeah, sure, great, we got you. And that's how I started as UNiDAYS as corporate counsel. UNiDAYS is the world's largest student verification network. So what that means is that we verify that an individual is actively enrolled in a college or university. And then once they become part of our gated community, we offer them discounts and offers from big brands, so big partners who want to build that lifetime of affinity with students. They know that that's really the demographic. They'll give a discount, let's say 10% off, 25% off, and we partner with those brands and bring it to the students and build that relationship between the two of them. So I started at UNiDAYS as corporate counsel, and gosh, that entrepreneurial itch doesn't go away, right? You could try to shut it down, but it won't. Keeps popping back up. And slowly I was promoted to senior counsel. I became interim general manager, really taking a step away from legal for a minute, because I was seeing a lot of operational issues that needed to be streamlined as the business was growing in the US and in other markets. And then ultimately to Global General Counsel, where now I oversee all of legal, privacy, compliance, governance, everything in between.
Yeah. And so can you talk a little bit about your transition to the business role? What did you bring from your legal role that helped you in business and vice versa?
I think in a legal role, we're very, I don't know if people say we are. I think we're data. We understand the importance of data and facts. So it was really coming in and saying, do you have a process written down? Is there a policy for how you're going about this? Like, is this just like a gut? How are we pricing things? How are we approaching certain situations and relationships? And so having had the legal experience as corporate counsel is really valuable to understand where the other side, and vice versa. Now in my seat, it's been tremendous understanding the commercial aspect of it and what's driving the business and what the business cares about. And I say this to my team very, very often. As lawyers, we really think that the world revolves around legal, right? Like if there's a bullseye, we think like we're at the middle and then everything kind of comes around it. But to a business, we're like over here, right? The bullseye is like growing the business. So you have to constantly remember that and constantly think about what would help the business. How can we enable the business to grow and do what they're trying to do? And so having had a seat in both sides of it was like the perfect combination of being able to get that insight.
So you mentioned your team. Can you tell us a little bit about the group of folks in the legal department working with you?
Yeah, I love them. My team is amazing. It's all about the team, right? But otherwise you got nothing. I'm hiring if anyone would like to join UNiDAYS. I'm hiring for a role in the UK, but I have a data privacy officer who's senior privacy counsel. He's based out of Scotland. I have a senior corporate counsel who's based out of London. I have a lawyer who's based out of New York, and the other role that we're hiring, corporate counsel, also based out of London. So really a global team. Everyone's across the globe, but bringing different experience and expertise into the work that we're doing.
So how have you found that distributed team working remotely or at least in different time zones? How's that worked? What have you found to be effective? What's been a challenge?
Working across different time zones, definitely. We are remote first since COVID, so that's definitely been a challenge of not being in the office. I think that's more of a challenge as a whole for a legal team, because a lot of the work that we do is having our ear to the door of what's happening in the business. So, having conversations around you hear the commercial team talking or you hear the people team talking, and you're able to kind of jump in and say, hey, but when you don't have those like water cooler conversations and you're not in person, it's really challenging to make sure that you are involved early on and part of the strategy. Having a global team has been really, really great. We work around the clock because the UK will pick it up. If they're, leaving for the day, they'll pass it to the US team, and then we'll pass it. We also have offices in Australia. We don't have lawyers there, but we'll pass it to, the next team that gets up. So we're really able to provide around the clock legal resource, which is a tremendous value to a business like ours.
So when in the absence of the water cooler conversations, how do you encourage your legal team to stay in touch with the business folks?
Yeah, so we've tried a bunch of different things. Our team, the legal team, has weekly meetings, and what we do is we do spotlights, and we'll bring on stakeholders from different departments into our weekly meeting, where they'll talk about what they're working on, challenges, and how the legal team can support them. That's been really valuable, just giving that
Yeah.
face time. Um, we have training that my team will set up, whether it's like a commercial training or privacy training, and again, giving that visibility and keeping legal top of mind when we do things privacy by design, for example. So that's been helpful training. And then quite simply having good relationships I'm going out to London. I try to go out often, having in-person conversations as much as possible. Just staying friends and having conversations that are not stressful, because once they think they're going to the legal team, it's like, oh, it's got to be a big deal. But we want to explain it's not a big deal.
So looking back, were there any unexpected moments or risks that turned out to be defining in your career?
Yes. I would say two that come to mind. One is becoming VP of operations, right? Like who, what, where, what do I know about warehouse management? It was a huge risk, and it was a lesson to say yes and then figure it out. Being able to understand how quickly the business needs to move. I would never have been able to learn that if I wasn't a VP of ops. So I would say that was a big risk, taking that on. The second big risk was accepting a GC role for a business that was based in the UK from here. When I studied US law, I'm happy to add U's into words like favor and color, but it's really a whole different law. And especially at a time when GDPR was first coming out, it was really scary. And there were times when I just wanted to backpedal and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. But then you realize that they don't teach us the law in law school, right? They teach us how to approach things, and they teach us how to learn and how to study and how to explore and push. And, so it was just continuing that curiosity across the board. So a lot of risk, but definitely a tremendous upside.
And you've worked in both startup environments and now at a global platform. How did those earlier experiences prepare you for the scale and speed of UNiDAYS?
Everything is scale and speed at UNiDAYS. I think mainly learning how to work with different brands and partners who are across the globe, right? Yeah. So when I was in my previous position, we were bringing these new products to market and feeling the pain of the entrepreneurs who wanted to get out and have their product. It was a great product, but who's going to learn about it unless they were on Amazon? So we were kind of being that step for them. And I think it's bringing that same understanding to the work that we're doing at UNiDAYS, giving these brands and the students an opportunity to connect and build this lifetime of affinity where, I bought that in college, and now, I'm 40 years old, I'm still buying that same whatever product it is. Yeah. So I think it translated very, very, very well.
What's your approach to helping a company like UNiDAYS grow quickly while still protecting compliance and integrity?
I think it's twofold. One is embedding the legal process in the strategic planning, right? So I touched on privacy by design, but really, it should be woven in during the strategic planning and not as an afterthought of, we have an issue and how do we resolve it? It's just kind of keeping that in mind. And I think that's kind of privacy across the globe. What we're seeing is really pushing that narrative. And the second one is looking around the corner. I think that lawyers or even in-house counsel who are really great at what they do are the ones who can ask questions beyond what you're asking them. Like, okay, you're asking me this seems like a fairly straightforward, but why are you asking it? And what can I see happening 3 months from now? And if you're able to look around the corner, that's going to be the most value that you can bring to a business.
So you also oversee legal across dozens of jurisdictions. How do you stay ahead of legal challenges that come with that kind of geographical reach?
Right, it's crazy, right? We're across countries, and I name them all, right? So one is continuous learning, right? You have to like keep being curious, keep learning what the laws and what the changes are in those regions. I spend a good amount of time every day learning about what's going on. You're going to leverage your local expertise. So in certain areas, you need to get local advice and counsel. Talking about like regulations in China or something of that sort. And then your network, right? Like your lawyer peers who have gone through something like this and kind of talking through, they've all experienced some variation of what you're experiencing. So definitely leverage your friends.
Can you share a recent moment where legal made a real impact on the business, not just by managing risk, but by unlocking opportunity?
Yeah. We are entering the arena and expanding the arena of verification opportunities across markets and platforms. So that's a lot of words, not things that I can necessarily give specific details about, but in a world where your existence is in a social sphere, you want to make sure that you can maintain your who you are, your age, and things of that sort are kind of protected. It's kind of hard to say. Sure. But we know it, right? You and I talked earlier, we both have kids. As our kids are getting older and social media is becoming more prevalent and different platforms are becoming more used by a younger generation, we want to make sure that they're protected, and we want to make sure that we help businesses protect that generation. So the legal team at UNiDAYS has been integral in establishing a compliant framework, enabling the company to be able to have these new partnerships and drive growth in a global sphere. And a lot of exciting stuff happening behind the scenes.
Well, and it sounds like you're trying to help build relationships between students and brands that span years, decades, even. And so I'm imagine that there's a lot of personal, private information that's being captured that the legal team must be a source of, how do we protect this to make sure our customers, clients are protected and assure that their information is safe.
Yeah, so important, so important.
So you've done executive education focused on risk and M&A at Harvard Business School. How has that shaped how you show up as a strategic partner to the business?
I think everyone should do these courses. Huge advocate of continued legal education, whatever it looks like for you and whatever's relevant for the business that you're in. I think specifically around the areas that I studied, something that was a common thread between the different certificates that I got from HBS was around having values for the business, right? So the business having values is going to become the North Star. If the business knows their values, the employees know it, it's not just something that hangs on a wall, then the decisions they make will have lower risk because everything will line back up to the business's values. The same thing for an M&A, right? If you have your values and you're acquiring a business, you're going to make sure they have the same values. Otherwise, it's just not going to work no matter what the finances look like. So I think it kind of reiterated the importance of knowing the business, knowing the values, living them, and kind of keeping that top of mind in whatever you're doing.
Interesting. So what part of scaling the UNiDAYS platform across 100 plus markets stretched you the most as a leader?
Balancing the global consistency with local compliance. It is so huge, right? You think about the framework of global compliance across all these different regions, and then keeping in mind that you have limited budgets, no matter how large the business is. And you need to have that balance of like, where's the risk, what's really important around compliance and transparency, and then like what's the integrity of our global operations, and kind of being able to marry that. I think that's the biggest stretch that I deal with on a daily basis.
What do you see as the next big challenge or opportunity for in-house legal in the tech space?
Data privacy.
Yeah.
Data privacy every day, especially around this demographic that I'm talking about, right? Once you're over 18, more or less, okay, it's changing, but across the board, it's similar. But when you're talking about a demographic that's like 17, 18, 16, 17, 18, I think there's a lot more coming out around it. And then AI ethics has become so important internally for a business, for the support it provides, for the work that it does externally. It's kind of all around us right now.
Can you share how AI is interfacing with the UNiDAYS business and what you're doing from a legal team to stay on top of those developments?
Yeah. We use AI to support some parts of the verification that we do. So it yields a faster turnaround time and reduces a lot of risks with fraud. And so we need to keep that top of mind with the regions that we're in, because they all have their AI limitations and requirements.
So
making sure the data is private.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of overlap between AI and data privacy regulation. So I'm imagining that you're tackling both of those pretty often. Are there any tools, systems, or even rituals that have helped your legal team work smarter and stay focused?
Yeah, so like I said, we have our weekly meetings, which are really important. During those meetings, we kind of geek out over changes in the law and like what you're seeing and just bouncing ideas off each other. Or have you ever done, or have you ever seen, and those kinds of conversations. So that's been really valuable. For project managing, we use, am I allowed to like drop names of like tools?
Sure.
Yeah, we use Monday.com, which has been really good. Helps us kind of keep track of the legal work that we're doing and the projects, the larger projects, like the big global compliance projects that we're doing, so we can keep track of it. And we see issues pop up, but because of bandwidth, we can't necessarily take care of everything at the same time. So we're able to slot it in there and not forget about it. So I think it's important to write it down somewhere and keep track of the things that you need to get to. So I would say those two are the biggest ones.
What do you try to model as a legal leader, especially when things get fast, messy, or uncertain?
Right, they do get fast, messy, and uncertain. Resilience, adaptability, clear communication. I would say those are the top three. And I think they apply internally within managing your team and externally with giving advice to the business.
How do you act on those with your team? Can you provide an example of when you've kind of leveraged those skills in a day-to-day instance?
Yeah. So for example, legal might give advice and say, this idea that you're having is risky, and, we think it's a medium risk to the business that we want to do, right? And then the business might say, right, that's nice, we still want to do it, right? And we've all been there as a legal team. We're like, okay, now what do we do? We told them it's risky, they still want to do it. So you need to be adaptable and understand why the business is doing what it's doing and understand your role in the process. We like to give statistics. We like to give numbers. Like, this is risky, this is the percentage of risk, right? It's never going to be without risk, and this is the percentage. You give numbers and you're able to clearly communicate that to someone who doesn't really want to see your 15-page memo. They want to understand, like, bottom line, what are you trying to say? What's the risk? How likely is this that it's going to happen? So being that clear communicator, just calling it out is so important. I've struggled through like the many page documents and memos that external counsel will sometimes provide. Now when I do RFPs, I put to the external counsel, I'm like, I want like pragmatic, clear advice. I don't have time for like a 25-page document. Like, tell me exactly when, how. So I think that we try to model that ourselves, and we're trying to be as resilient as possible. Like, it's not personal if someone in a commercial team says, no, we're not going to do that. I'm not like, oh no, my gosh, oh great, okay, let's see how we can help mitigate whatever the risks are.
Yeah, characterizing the risk has always struck me as really important. I mean, we've used a system of kind of likelihood, magnitude. High likelihood of the risk of occurring, and a high magnitude is where you have to be really cautious. Low likelihood, low magnitude, you've got more freedom to operate, and then things fall anywhere in that spectrum. So yeah, having a way to make it, bring it from conceptual legally, the issues from more of an abstract idea to, okay, this is how it could really impact the business, just seems to make a huge impact.
Right. And something that we're like, just recently I was looking at is even doing a visual. I have it's literally a picture of what you talked about. It's, the axis with like high impact, high probability, low impact, and it's like, the red and the green, and then just like plotting it somewhere on there and a little visual would be super helpful for just business stakeholders who don't want to read all the legalese that you have to say.
That's great. That's great. What's one way you keep your team connected to the business, especially when everything is moving really quickly?
I send them really funny gifts sometimes. I do. I mean, listen, you have to celebrate the small wins, not just the big ones. I do what I call forced fun. I force them to play games online with us. Really like trying to put things into perspective, because in the role that we're in, there's always going to be fires. It's going to be high stress, and you need to maintain a very even equilibrium in what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just going to go crazy. So trying to put things into perspective, have a support system, people that you can talk to about it, brainstorm. Because at the end of the day, we're all like really curious, smart people on the team. So it's just, that's going to be what you leverage, is chatting with someone else and kind of pushing the buttons and seeing what makes sense, what lands.
Yeah, that's great. So for a young attorney hoping to one day sit where you sit, what's something you wish someone had told you earlier?
One, I would say, is embrace the opportunities, right? So don't just think traditional legal path. There's opportunities everywhere, and understand the business landscape is going to be tremendous. Really understand. I've worked with lawyers in-house who don't actually fully understand what the business does. Like once you get into the nitty-gritty, their eyes glaze over. So truly understand what the business does. Understand the department. Don't take things personally, and continue to be curious. Like keep learning, keep asking questions, so that you can just like maximize those opportunities that'll come across your way.
It's one of the best aspects, I think, of our profession, is that there's always something more to learn. There's the possibilities, opportunities are limitless. So
isn't that great? I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and wish you all the best, and hope to have you again soon.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Take care.